Let's Go Green, sponsored by EirGrid, managing and operating Ireland's electricity grid for a cleaner energy future. Check out airgrid.ie for more.
Hello, and you are very welcome to this week's episode of Let's Go Green here on Midlands 103. I'm your host, Aisling O'Rourke, and you are very welcome to the show this week. If you went to the ploughing out in Screggan over the last couple of days, I hope you enjoyed it. I didn't make it myself this year, and I believe it was rather squelchy in parts, apparently, but the pictures that I saw were quite sunshiny, and the reports that I got from the people that I know that went to it were all very, very positive. And we'll be talking about some of the wonderful food created in the Midlands and food products created in the Midlands as part of the show this week. A little bit later on, we're going to be joined by Yvonne Carty of Hey Pesto to really celebrate all the variety of food producers that we have here in the Midlands counties. But first things first, sustainability really should start at home. And you know, there's very few households, I'm not going to name any names of brands here, but there's very few households in the country these days that don't have a piece of flat pack furniture, or, you know, those things that we buy because they're cheap and they fill a void at the time, but maybe don't last and maybe are not as environmentally friendly as we'd like them to be. So a new company has formed recently to try and get us thinking more about furniture and really making better choices in the woodwork that we're putting into our homes. It's called Punk, and we're joined by its founders, Brian Tyrrell and Knut Klimet.
So Punk is a modular shelving system that myself and Knut have created. It was created in the idea of we're bespoke furniture makers, so we wanted to bring production furniture back to Ireland, but in a much more sustainable way. We wanted to bring solid materials that are sustainably sourced and bring it into the Irish market in a way that means that you get the benefits of bespoke, which is a lot of bespoke furniture and solid made furniture can be repairable, fixable. There's somebody to go to and talk to about it afterwards. So, and then also the other part of, also a negative part of bespoke furniture is that it's actually very hard to sell it on. So we wanted to kind of create a market for secondhand furniture as well. So within Punk, we have our system, which we would like people to sell back to us if they want to. So therefore they can, say if, you know, somebody in an apartment in Dublin buys it, puts it in their apartment, loves it, but unfortunately jobs have moved on and they have to move abroad. There shouldn't be just the only place to sell furniture, shouldn't just be done deal. It should be able to go back to the manufacturer. We should be able to be the first ones to try and purchase it back and be able to sell that on our website at second hand. The other reason for doing that means that, say somebody gets a modular section of our shelving system, so maybe a smaller unit moves to a bigger house, and they maybe want to add on to it. So they can maybe look in the secondhand part of the parts and just add on secondhand wise to their furniture. So myself and Knut have really thought about this in a lot of different ways as to how to really do sustainable furniture, not just in, you know, recycled materials and all that kind of in circular economy. It's much more in just, in essence, old school thinking of ideas, that things should be handed down or things should have a value into it, not just a buy and then bin kind of mentality.
I have it's actually a bedside table in my guest room now, but I have a classroom, a desk from a classroom in, it was, I believe, in Dangan Reformatory, but my godfather gave it to me when I was, I think, starting secondary school. And it's moved with me over the years. And I like the fact that, you know, for me, it's sentimental. Like my godfather gave it to me. I know it came from County Offaly originally. It was, you know, there's history behind it. And that's it's an important thing to have, to recognise the craftsmanship that was done and to mind it over the years and hand it down as well.
Yeah, there is all of that to it. And you know, you grow with a piece of furniture and it, as you say, has sentimental value. And to make sure that that can be passed on to the next generation is what we're trying to do with Punk and the materials we're using. You know, to allow it to be repaired, to allow it to be added to, is key and critical. And, you know, we're trying to simplify the sustainability aspect in a way that people can connect with it. And that is the principles of the circular economy, but making it real. You know, we will we want this to be repaired. We want to buy it back and give it a second life if you no longer need it. And so, yes, what you said is exactly what we want to achieve. We want to build a community around this product. The people that will talk about it, live with it, pass it on, either to neighbours, friends, children, grandchildren. That will be brilliant. That's what it's all about.
Talk to me too about, because obviously, when we buy something from, say, online or whatever it might be, from, it's been shipped in abroad in a flat pack, whatever the brand of flat pack is, before anybody takes offence. And don't get me wrong, I've got stuff in my own home that's come from flat pack.
We all have stuff in our own house. Nobody that doesn't.
But there's two things, and there's two things, like with the flat pack product, you've no idea where the wood has come from. So can you talk to me about the materials that you are using? How do you source them?
Well, we were very keen to use European timbers. In other words, timber that's been grown and processed in Europe, rather than using American timbers that have been shipped all over the world and have a huge carbon footprint. So at the moment we're using an oak product, which is manufactured in Italy, but we are experimenting at the moment with another panel product, which is manufactured in Spain, and they have their own forestry in Spain, so we can very easily define the provenance of the raw materials, never mind the manufacturing process. And then the shipping route is from the north of Spain to Ireland. Again, really minimizing the carbon footprint of the material before it gets to us. And the fact that it's solid timber means that, we're sequestering carbon, we're not releasing it, and it allows the product then to be refurbished and sanded and repaired very, very easily.
How though? Because there'll be people listening to this that'll say, yes, but you're still, regardless of, what way you say it, you're still cutting down trees.
But those trees are being replanted those trees are being replanted and forested in a sustainable way. So it's a managed forestry where they replant, because the interesting thing about the chestnut, which we're hoping to use, is that there's a problem with chestnut in Europe. Generally, it's a little bit like the ash dieback disease, which is called ring shake. And this particular area in the north of Spain are free of that disease. They have a little pocket of micro climate there that the disease hasn't penetrated into. Okay. So they are very careful to maintain their forestry there, to keep that clean. And they're using sustainable practice and reforesting their own plantations, basically. So it's, yes, we are cutting down timber, but that's being managed and replaced.
Because at the end of the day, we all need some kind of, in your case, it's shelving, but we need furniture. We need chairs to sit on. The population of the world is still growing. And people want nice things in their homes. But Brian, I think sometimes the fear many people have around going bespoke is price.
Yeah, it's there's no sort of way to get away from bespoke in the fact that it is going to be expensive. You're talking about massive amount of labor, design, construction, engineering, thinking. There's so many levels of it. You talk about, just in general, we need to pay ourselves in this country to work. So when you are dealing with that, it is expensive. That's not to say it's not, one way to think about it is that is the right way. You want people to have a decent wage. You want people to be paid the right amount for what they're working at, and to have the right safety in price in the workshops. So when you get a product made in Ireland, you have those kind of concerns that the staff are being paid properly. They said the factory is rated to the highest European standards, if not higher. And it's just one of those things where I'm thinking, yes, it is expensive, but there is justification for that expensive when it comes to bespoke and made in Ireland. But this is the difference between Punk now. Punk is a production product where we are making it in Ireland, but we are trying to alleviate a lot of the massive costs that come with that, because we are doing more of the same product again and again and again, rather than bespoke, which is each time we make it, it's a one-off piece. It's a lot more design and labor into it. And then that's the kind of thinking about furniture in that way. I'm kind of of that opinion that furniture shouldn't be cheap in a lot of cases. And that's, you know, it's a hard one to kind of justify due to the fact that there's a lot of people that maybe can't afford Irish made furniture, and that's understandable. And that's, I may own and make furniture, but I genuinely can't. I wouldn't be able to afford a lot of the bespoke furniture that I make. But it's a concern, but it is one of those things where it's, you know, there should be more options as to sort of how to afford. And also then I think would give people a lot more, you know, elements of researching and really knowing the product, understanding and loving the product. We're not expecting people to, you know, and I'm particularly in the bespoke world, just to come on and just be like, yeah, no worries. Don't care what the price is. You know, they usually research a lot to do with us. They know what the product is. They're invested in it before they've even purchased the product. And I think that's the way you should be with your furniture. That'll give you the kind of the desire and want to repair it, pass it down. It keeps that intrinsic value in the furniture. I think there's something wrong with the furniture market at the moment where, you know, even really good pieces end up on Done Deal for very, very cheap currently in the market. And I think there's something not okay, like in my opinion, about that. There should be intrinsic value in furniture, and I don't think there is at the moment currently.
And of course, just to keep our managers happy, there are other online platforms where furniture is resold as well, as well as Done Deal, of course. I say all of this in jest, of course, but your point, Brian, is well made. And talk to me then as well about longevity. Listeners will know because I've mentioned it once or twice. I recently bought a house and I've been refurbishing it, and I'm currently sitting at a flat pack desk, which has been, well, cobbled together to make it work for now. It's not in the best shape. It shakes all the time. It's pure, you know, useless, but it's doing the job for now. And there'll be people that, you know, they're nervous of buying, like, quote unquote, real wood because, well, does that not take lots of minding? And if I buy the one with the plastic coating on it, sure, it'll be easier to take care of. But the longevity you get with an actual crafted piece of carpentry, like, that's worth its weight in gold.
Well, the point about solid timber is that it can be repaired easily. The desk you have, once you put a scratch in it or you have put a hot teacup on it and it has a mark, that's it. It's gone in the bin because it's not repairable.
And there's plenty of those, I'll tell you that.
Well, exactly. And we all do that. I mean, that's just life. And when you go into an antique shop and you buy an old piece of furniture, that life that piece of furniture has lived and interacted with people, that's called patina. And, you know, and that enhances the product in the eyes of a person who's looking for antique pieces. So we're not afraid of saying, look, you need to live with this. But, you know, we understand that life will, you know, happen and that things will get damaged. We're keen to make sure that you can extend the life of that product for as long as possible. And like the desk that you have as a bedside table, we want our pieces to be like that they'll end up in somebody's house saying, I got this from my grandfather. I don't know where it came from, but I still love it. And, you know, there's more of it out there somewhere. I have to find it, you know. And so we want that to happen. That's our goal. And solid timber allows us to maximize the value for the customer. And I think that's what we need to look at here. But what is valuable rather than cheap, you know, and cheap furniture is great for today, but it's not so good for tomorrow necessarily. We are, you know, reaping the rewards of cheap food in our environmental impacts of producing that food cheaply. And we need to, and I know there are a lot of the bigger brands are really looking at their sustainability and zero carbon footprints, but what does that really mean at the end of the day for the end user, and how do they interpret that? One of the simplest way of being sustainable is to buy less stuff. Mm-hmm. And the only way you buy less stuff is if the things that you have last longer. And, you know, so you don't have to throw your desk out in 5 years' time because it doesn't wear, you have to replace it. So that's where our thinking is coming into this, making sure that the life of our product that we produce, we put energy and time into, the value to the end user is maximized not only in the life of the life that it has, but also when we can buy it back and bring it to somebody else as reused, rehomed.
Now, I want to talk to both of you about, your experience of running this joint initiative and the circular economy piece and all of that. But we're going to pay some bills, we're going to take an ad break, and Knut and Brian will be back with us in a few moments' time.
Let's Go Green, sponsored by EirGrid, managing and operating Ireland's electricity grid for a cleaner energy future. Check out airgrid.ie for more.
You're listening to Let's Go Green here on Midlands 103, and today I am joined by Knut Klimek and Brian Tyrrell of Punk Shelving Supplies. Brian, I'm after butchering the company name. You may explain it for us there. I was going to say bespoke, but then you told us earlier on it's not quite bespoke in that it's a production model. So Punk is this, it's real wood, real timber. It's a shelving system. Yourself and Knut have come together. You're both bespoke furniture makers. You work in carpentry, but you're trying to make it all more accessible for people.
Yes, that's exactly what Punk is. Punk is the kind of the bridge between bespoke and production furniture. So we're making it with the kind of main principles of bespoke, which means you make it well, you design it properly, you use the right materials. But we're also trying to then sort of make it so that it's easily sellable on the secondhand market as well. So it's not completely designed around one person's needs. It's not, designed for one alcove that's, an exact measurement. It's much more modular in that way. So more people can use it. It can be added and altered to suit your house, but it's not particularly exactly bespoke for your house.
Talk to me then about coming together as two entrepreneurs to create this initiative, because like in recent years, there's been so much conversation about the circular economy and the opportunities for innovation. You're doing something that hasn't really been done before. So has it been challenging?
Yes. No, it's been challenging but exciting. Both myself and Knut, we have our own companies, we have our own businesses that make bespoke furniture. Knut has, he's been in the game a good bit longer than me. I've always looked up to Knut, and it was just me coming to him and him coming to me, just talking and having conversations. We're both, quite interested in the circular economy, and where I think we joined on the principle was that it's so terrifying when you look at the whole problem as to where to start. And that was our kind of our jumping off point with the two of us. So we wanted to do something together, and therefore let's try and do something that encapsulates what we could do today with what we have, and what we know within the circular economy, not what future, will be amazing in 10 to 20 years if we can get our hands on this or whatever. It's like, what can we do today? Yeah. That is the best solution for today. It's not perfect in any way, shape or form, but it's the start, and it then goes on to being something better.
There is power in that, Knut, isn't there? Like this, I don't know, was it Mary Robinson who said it initially, but, we can't do everything, but one person can do one important thing in terms of tackling climate change and minding the environment.
Yeah, and people talk about, it's sustainability and, all those kind of things have lost their flavour at the moment because of what's going on globally. People are focused elsewhere. But so we're keen to make it as simple as possible to make those decisions and see the value in being sustainable and in being circular. And we want to be very clear about how we're doing that in our product. And I think what we've discussed earlier, we've kind of hopefully given that message across. But it is key that we all take responsibility for the life that we're living now so that those coming after us have something to live in. And, that's not always possible or easy in terms of making those decisions on a day-to-day basis. So we're trying to be as clear as possible as to what we're doing and why we're doing it, so that we can feel honest and comfortable in bringing this product to market. Because the world has plenty of shelving systems, but this one is a bit different. We feel certainly it's different, and it has an intrinsic value in its concept, in this conceptualization of how we've gone about it and what we're trying to do with it. That is, I think, better than others that are out there.
And Knut, like Brian said, you've been in this world for quite some time now. Is there like a challenge in running a business that, you know, there's manual labour involved, there's really skilled craftspeople needed for this kind of work? Running a business in an environmentally friendly way, to many people would sound like an awful lot of extra work, but how has it worked out for you?
Well, running a business is problematic at the best of times. And, you know, running a business in a sustainable way is difficult, and very difficult if you are a small company like ours. The choices that you have to make are often difficult and not quite as clear-cut and easy. So, you know, you buy your electricity where you can at the best prices because you need to keep your costs down. All those kind of things, you know, are tricky. You try and use, obviously, we've put some solar panels on the roof of our factory. We've maxed that out. It doesn't produce all the electricity we use. We try and recycle as much of the material that we have in terms of keeping offcuts and reusing them in different parts. All those kind of things is what we try and do as much as possible. But the modern expectation in terms of cost, in terms of what you need to produce a product for, even if it is at a bespoke level, makes those choices very difficult sometimes. So it's not easy. And I think, you know, that was the reason for us coming together, was to kind of share our experiences and try and bring the best of what we wanted to do to a product which was more than ourselves. You know, the sum of the parts is more than the individual factories or workshops that are producing the furniture. Does that make sense? It
does. It absolutely does. Because I think that, like, the business people who listen to this show and the challenges they face, whether it's in like even in my own work, like I have an awful lot of data that I store because, you know, I do radio and I have audio and all of these files and I know that has a carbon footprint, and there's so much that we all need to think about around how we manage our work and the impact that it is having. But Brian, I can see you nodding there, like, we still do have to work, so we have to balance it out.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think that the big thing with kind of the cost element is something that we think about a lot within Punk as well. So on our website, we have a configurator where people can actually go and draw up your entire shelving system on our website. So if they just put in the length of their wall, we spent a good amount of time designing this so that it could be done so people can go on and they can build it up themselves. But one little intrinsic part of it that we have is also how you can pay for it. And it's just something that we've done a little bit differently, and it's kind of how we think and how we work. So you can just go out and pay for it outright if you want. If you have the ability to do that and you want to do that and you're okay with that, you can just pay for it. Or you can click this little button which calls invoice, and you can break the payments up as you feel fit. So it's one of those things that we're kind of bringing in. The reason why we kind of came into that idea was I have a supplier of mine, Woodworkers in Dublin. I shout out to them anyway. And they're great suppliers of mine. And Ken, the owner, the Milovskis have been there, I think, since the 1920s. I might get that wrong, but they've been there a long time. They used to make the furniture for Arnott's. They're now a timber supplier, but they have all the old records in there. And it's fascinating. Ken's a great guy, and you can go in, you can check it all out. And he had this old book. And he showed me the old book, and it was basically how people used to pay for furniture back in the day. Yeah. And it was the family name, and then it was, you know, Mary dropped in, and it's £10. She dropped in on Tuesday, the 28th, and it was built up till there was a certain amount of value on the furniture. Then they would start making the furniture and then give the person a date. But they dropped it in. So even, you know, the idea of that is something that's very interesting to me in particular, and Knut as well. It's just the way of being able to afford this furniture. I'm not, you know, I rent my home. I'm not a homeowner. I'm not, you know, I understand the problems that can come with wanting this stuff, but not quite being able to have the lump sum of money for it. So we're trying to work around creative ways to, you know, let people afford in their own way this kind of furniture and this kind of lifestyle if they can. So it's something to think about in that way.
Is it now? And I'm not. What's that? I'm not trying to turn a sow's ear into a silk purse here, right? I was trying to think of the phrase there for a moment. But is there positive. Like, obviously climate change is terrible, okay? But it is forcing us to think more about how we live our lives and how we do business. So is there the opportunity there for, innovators to really thrive now, because the market wants someone to do business with people who are more sustainably minded? There is an interest there. So does that in itself provide opportunity for business growth here in Ireland?
I think so. Yeah, I think the innovative piece that you've just mentioned is the key here, and it's not always, coming up with this amazingly brilliant out of the blue idea. It's incremental. Innovation is incremental. It's making little changes to things that already exist that make them better and make them more usable or sustainable or whatever it is. And I think we need to get that message across, that innovation is not about big things, it's about little things. And when we can do the little things, like explain where a material comes from and allow people to repair their own furniture, that's not rocket science. That's just common sense. And if we can just get that message across, and you mentioned it earlier, it's the little things that we do today that make the big things happen in the future. So if we can all say, well, I'm going to strive to keep my furniture longer, and I'm going to take care of it better to allow that to happen. If that's the message we can get across today in this program, that's huge. It doesn't. They don't have to buy a punk shelving system. They just have to keep their stuff a little bit longer and be more mindful of, using coasters. Like, when I was growing up, you went to your granny's house and there was doilies and there was mats and there was the good room and that never got used.
And if you were sent over to Granny during the summertime and she didn't know what to do with you, you were handed a bottle of beeswax and a cloth, and you were told to go polish the cupboards. It's a very good point, and it isn't as hard as we think it might be. Yes, it takes a bit more thinking perhaps, and maybe a bit more saving, as Brian is pointing out, but it is all doable. Well, Knut Klimek and Brian Tyrrell of Punk, thank you so much for joining us on Let's Go Green.
Thank you.
Let's Go Green, sponsored by EirGrid, managing and operating Ireland's electricity grid for a cleaner energy future. Check out airgrid.ie for more.
You're listening to Let's Go Green here on Midlands 103. Well, from real timber to really good food produced right here in the Midlands. We are joined now by Yvonne Carty of Hey Pesto. Yvonne, welcome back to the programme.
Thanks, Aisling. Thanks for having me back.
Now, Yvonne, like in the last week, thousands upon thousands of people travelled to the Midlands. They went out to the ploughing. They were probably overwhelmed with all that was on display, from, cattle to machinery to, everything, including a lot of food products that are in fact produced here in the Midlands. And I think, we don't often kind of sing our own praises here in the Midlands, but we do have some amazing food producers here, don't we?
We have some absolutely wonderfully amazing producers, and I've always been a promoter of as much local food as I can, but I was blown away by the Midlands Ireland tent during the ploughing. We had 18 producers, thanks to Bernie Everett from Midlands Ireland, who organised the whole event. And she asked me to go along and come up with recipes using the products over the 3 days. So I did 3 demos and three recipes a day, all using the different products. And the reaction was just amazing. And the food, I was blown away, because I had gone out the week before. Some of the guys had sent me in samples, so I was doing up recipes. And there's things that I didn't know about, but now they're never going to leave my kitchen.
And at the end of the day, when it comes to sourcing food and doing our weekly shops and all of that, the most sustainable way to shop is to shop locally and buy food produced as close to your home as you possibly can. So now I know we're not going to have time to give them all a shout out, but give us some kind of an idea of what we do have here in the Midlands.
We have, I'm going to try my best to get them all in. We have pesto and sauces from the Skinny Chef. We have amazing honey products from Farmhouse Bees and Trees in Longford. We have nuts from UC Foods again in Longford. Heartland Orchards in Longford do the most amazing rhubarb and apple sauce that I'm just living on it at the moment. We've 2 distilleries were with us, Loughree Distillery and Fore Distillery. Fox Covert in Kilcormac do hemp hearts, which are again a new thing for me. Fury's beetroot from Kilcormac. The brownies we did from them were a blow away.
No, hang on a second. Beetroot brownies.
Beetroot brownies.
Okay, we're going to have to come back to that one, right? All right, okay, keep going.
Biasol and Daily Dose were 2 companies that were there who make their own products. So I didn't use their ingredients, but they're there as producers. The Wild Irish Foragers, who have always and forever been a favourite of mine, and they're based down in Shinrone, and their things are just amazing. Simply Baked, which are in Tullamore with the wraps, they're now going retail. Barbara Villa Dairy in Westmeath. The cheese, actually, you just have to have the cheese. And then Magico Bakery in Athlone, their breads. Like, I would live on the Magico Bakery and the Barbara Villa Dairy. Like, I think I lived on it for the 3 days. And then we have Love Food from Westmeath, who do ready meals. And then Anna Olivia Chocolates as well in Westmeath, we use their chocolate in the brownies. So I think I got everyone. And then we did a new one. And I used Pigs on the Green and Quarrymount meats. I brought those out as well because they couldn't have a stand because it was fresh meat. And then there was a new producer who was actually in the Offaly tent, is the Cameler Spice Co., who do spice mixes, which, again, it's another product I'm in love with.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I just for transparency's sakes, I have no shares and no financial input, but I am related to Quarrymount Meats and Pigs on the Green. Distantly related, I suppose, but the sausages are just phenomenal. If you haven't heard of Pigs on the Green in particular, but it's a wonderful list, all right. But there's a few things there that I hadn't heard of before. Hemp hearts, what exactly are they?
They're from the hemp plant. So they're the hemp heart, and they're full of protein and magnesium and fibre and all things that are good for you. So I use them in a granola. Again, going back to the beetroot brownie, see, they kept coming up. Top of that, I use them in something else. I can't remember, but I was using them and you can just eat them. You know, they're great. Oh, I made a crumble. I did an apple crumble that you didn't have to bake. And I put those into the topping as well.
Oh, no, okay. We're going to have to go back to the not having to bake bit. But if all
it sounds gluten-free, Aisling.
Okay. You've really got me interested now. But come here now. They sound lovely and healthy and all of that. But do they taste nice?
Oh, yeah.
Because that's important too, Yvonne. Right.
You can ask the people that we did the crumble. I did it for the Midlands tent, I did it in the ICA tent, and I did it in the Offaly Experience tent. I was all over the place doing demos. So
God, you must be wrecked. Okay, let's go to the brownie first. So,
yes.
I think for those of us that can't have gluten or have to avoid it or are allergic to it, beetroot does and vegetables tend to make their way into baked goods. There's because they're so versatile. So I suppose it might not be entirely new to some listeners, the idea that you might use beetroot in a brownie. But for most people, that kind of is, like, how does it even work? And does it still taste like chocolate,
Yeah, it tastes like, because now I've done, Nigel Station does a brilliant beetroot chocolate cake that I use his recipe a fair bit. So then I was trying to think, could I do? So using Anne-Marie Ferry's beetroot, she has a concentrated beetroot juice, which I used instead of cooking beetroot and pureeing them, which is what you would normally do in a recipe. So I did the concentrated. Now, I haven't got that quite gluten-free yet, but I'm working on a gluten-free version of it.
Good. We like to hear that.
Because I think it would work really well. I did this one with self-raising flour, but I want to get it done with almond flour and see how it works.
Interesting. Okay.
So I'll keep you posted on that one.
And for the non-gluten intolerant listener, when you mix the beetroot in, for a lot of people, the only experience of beetroot in particular is in the vinegar in the jar.
No, so nothing like that.
Yeah, like, does it still, like, would you know that there's beetroot in it when you're eating it?
No.
Okay.
Except for the colour. The colour might give it away. It's a beautiful pink colour. It's like a red velvet appearance. Mm-hmm. So, I tried them here before the ploughing, and my neighbours loved them, so I felt safe enough then bringing them out there. And the recipe will be on the Midlands Ireland webpage.
Fantastic. You have some, I'd love to be your neighbour and being your Yvonne's taste tester. That sounds like a fantastic job. All right. So tell us then about the no-bake apple crumble, because I don't quite understand how you could not have to bake it.
Because what you do is you stew your apples.
Okay.
And I use some of the spice from the Camel Spice Co into that. I can't remember which number. They have 12 different spice blends. You need to see these products. They're beautiful. And I have my stewed apple, and then I make a topping. So I toast off some oats. I used Merry Mill organic oats, so they're gluten-free as well. They're certified. I put in some of the nuts from UC Nuts. I did some mixed seeds and some hemp hearts. So you toast all those in butter in a pan. And a little bit of cinnamon and maybe a pinch of salt. And that's all you do. And then you put that on top of your stewed apple.
Lovely.
And you can use it as a breakfast or a dessert. And then we topped it with, of course, Glenisc yogurt. And I got, the Wild Irish have a crabapple drizzle, which went over the top of it. And then we got bee pollen from the Farmhouse Bees and Trees. So it was a really healthy either dessert or breakfast, whichever you wanted.
And
and tasty.
Stewed apple is gorgeous. Like, I know my mum used to make it a lot when I was a child. It's not even something I've nothing against it, but I don't think to make it, and it's such a simple thing to do, really, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's what I do, because I've been getting presents. My poor apple tree went down in Storm Owen, so I've been getting presents of apples. And to preserve them, what I do is I stew them and I freeze them. I don't put any sugar in ham stew, so I just literally peel the apples, chop them up and put them in with a little bit of water and let them bubble away until they break down. And then when they're cool, just put them into bags and freeze them.
Okay.
And take them out during the winter.
Yeah, okay. Because I know my mum is very good at, when it comes to rhubarb, she's a lot of rhubarb at home.
Same idea.
And she'll chop them up and freeze them and then stew them, and you have like this lovely rhubarb. And it's just, for this time of year, like stewed rhubarb or stewed apple, it's lovely and warming.
Yeah, and comfort food.
And like, if you want to make it sweet and sugary, you can, but it's still lovely and healthy without that too.
Yeah. Put a bit of cinnamon into it. Put a spoon of cinnamon into it, make it nice and warming, or a bit of nutmeg or something, and it'd be lovely.
Now, I know, like, you've been a champion of food produced, in Offaly and in the Midlands for many years. But, as a chef, how does it feel to see all of these new projects come online and the improvements over the years?
Oh, it's amazing. I was saying that to the guys out there, saying, like, when I started getting involved in local food it's over 20 years ago. And the difference now in what's coming, like, we had great products back then, but we've even better products now. And people are more, I think the big sea change is people are more accepting of them. Mm-hmm. Like, I was delighted for the guys because their sales, I think everybody enjoyed good sales in the tent. We were trying to encourage people to take it. And as you said, the best way is to shop local. So now my next thing is to make sure that we can all access the products. I'm trying to get the guys to stock in, around the Midlands and make sure that we can buy the things.
Yeah, because sometimes they might be in, like, they're not necessarily as tech savvy. They might not be able to order them online as easily, or there might, so it's about, I suppose maybe it's about us as consumers really thinking about the products that we're going to need for the next week when we're doing the shopping. Well, can I pop down to the local veg store, because they also stock local jams and they also stock local chutneys, and just thinking a little bit more about what we're bringing back when it comes to food products into the house.
Yeah, and also, to be fair to the larger supermarkets, we don't always give them the kudos they deserve. With the Kickstart programs that they have, two of the guys were in the supermarkets this week in the Kickstart. They're like, you can now go out and buy the Barbavilla cheese and the Skinny Chef pestos in the supermarkets. And I think a lot of them are in, am I allowed to mention one? A lot of them are in SuperValu. SuperValu do stock a lot of the local producers.
Yeah, and like SuperValu are particularly good at it. Lidl are pretty good at it as well. Like they have their programs as well.
Lidl have the Barberville cheese at the moment, and they do a lot of other, Irish products. And actually Aldi are coming on as well.
Yeah.
So, you can access them.
And the only way that those products, locally produced food products, will become more accessible to us as consumers is if we start shopping with, putting our money where our mouth is and looking for these products in supermarkets locally and asking maybe, you had your Kickstarter there in September, but guys, I still want to buy that cheese. Why is it gone? We need as consumers to help these producers out as well.
Definitely. I mean, they work so hard. I was talking to some of the guys, and some of them saying they could work a 20-hour day, to try and make sure. And we all know about the rising costs of everything. And some of them say they can't afford to take on staff because some of the products might be seasonal, so they couldn't keep them on all the time. And then you've all the additional costs of taking on staff. So they do all this as labours of love.
Mm. And we really should be so very proud of them because, we have, there is some beautiful products being produced in the Midlands, and there's nothing that beats, serving up a dinner and someone says, where did you get that? And you said, actually, that's so-and-so down the road. Did you know that's what they were up to? You know what I mean? There's that local pride that, does wonders for a business.
Yeah. I'm just thinking, before I get shot for not mentioning them, I know Fear Bia brought some of their meat as well there in Laois, and Muller O'Connell sent up bread as well, so we could use that on one of the days, just in case I get into trouble, because I'm always getting into trouble for leaving somebody out.
Well, it always is the danger when we start listing out names of people, isn't it? I was at an event today, and the poor president listed out the names of all the committee members but left 2 people off by accident, and it's so easy happens. So I think we've got them all mentioned in there. If people want to find out more, can we find out about these producers on Midlands Ireland's website?
I understand there's going to be a lot on it this week. I'm going to put some of the recipes up on my Hey Pesto Instagram as well. So we'll try and get it. And if anybody needs any information, just contact me on Hey Pesto and I'll direct them in the right way. But Midlands Ireland is a great source for all this information as well.
And if you ever need a gluten-free taste tester, well, sure, you know to give us a call.
I know where to go.
Well, Yvonne Carty of Hey Pesto, thank you so much for joining us once again on Let's Go Green.
Thanks, Ashley.
We'll be back after the break.
Let's Go Green, sponsored by AirGrid, managing and operating Ireland's electricity grid for a cleaner energy future. Check out airgrid.ie for more.
You're listening to Let's Go Green here on Midlands 103. Well, I hope you enjoyed our show this week. Before I let you go, though, I want to bring you some environmental news from around the world this week. When you hear the word canal, do you think of the Grand Canal in the Midlands or the Royal Canal? Do you think of Venice in Italy, or would you think of California? I know I certainly didn't, but in recent days, there's been the official launch of a new project in California. Now, it's not the first in the world and it's not the first time in America, but it is still the first in California. And it's where they've erected a 110-foot wide grid of solar panels above a section of canal. California, apparently, has a massive network of canals to feed. It's basically an irrigation system in many ways. It's like, we're talking like thousands of kilometres worth of canals across the state of California, which is massive. And while we're familiar here with solar panels going on the roofs of buildings, the roofs of our homes, and even relatively new developments in solar farms, in California, they have found that erecting solar panels on farmland is prohibitively expensive. So, in recent decades, Project Nexus has been underway. It is a project it's been tested out in India. It was launched as well in Arizona. And the idea is to try and protect the canal infrastructure in states in America and try and not lose as much water through evaporation because of rising temperatures. Because While here in Europe, we are very well accustomed to our canal systems, which are man-made, but they're tree-lined. They're protected from the extreme temperatures in heat waves somewhat. Whereas in the rolling plains of Arizona and the very dry land across that part of the States, and indeed in the wine regions of California, evaporation of the water is a significant problem because they're not in any way protected, these canals. So it's a new initiative which is trying to assess whether or not erecting a grid of solar panels on top of canals could benefit the local communities through generating electricity for low cost, but also shade the canals and try and prevent or at least lessen the amount of water that is evaporating from the canals. Now, in these areas, I don't know what wildlife is like, but immediately I'm wondering what other impacts might this work have. Like if local birds are used to being able to fly up and down the canals and dip in and out of the water, what are they going to make of these massive pieces of infrastructure being erected above their local canal, their local waterway? Researchers have been working on this for a long time, but they say that it will take at least 12 months of this facility now being up and running, which it is now, to see the benefits of it, the cost analysis and whether or not they can do it even more efficiently. They're talking about, for example, so at the moment, and if you Google it, you'll see these pictures. Like, it is quite impressive, this infrastructure. But at the moment, it's angled quite high above the canal. So it's using, concrete and steel trusses and pillars to erect them, to hold the solar panels above the water. But they're looking to see, can they lower the distance between the solar panels and the waterway so that they can then use less concrete to erect them, so to make it more environmentally friendly in that way in the construction of them. But yeah, I just thought it was particularly interesting. It's gotten a bit of news coverage around, the States in particularly. I don't think it's gotten much coverage here yet, but it is very interesting. It's quite innovative, and it'd be interesting to see the impact of it. It's quite industrial looking. I don't know, would we here in Ireland like to see something like this be erected, because our canals are quite scenic, but it is, it's worth looking into at least, and I'd be interested in finding out what the environmental impact statement says in 12 months' time. Thought I'd bring you that one for this week. I was looking at it on sfgate.com if you're interested in finding out more about it. But as I said, several news organisations have been covering it over the past week or so. If there's something you'd like us to discuss here on Let's Go Green on Midlands 103, please do feel free to get in contact with me. You can email me directly to hello@thecommunicationscoach.ie. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm at Aisling O'Rourke CC. Or, of course, you can go to Midlands 103 and contact the station directly if you'd like to speak with me or suggest an item for the show, or if you have a question you'd like me to try and get somebody on to answer. We're always interested in hearing from you. And at the moment, I'd really love to hear from someone involved in the farm plan scheme. It's an under-discussed scheme. We've talked about the Acres scheme and work on farms to increase biodiversity and all of that. But the farm plan scheme is one that's come across my radar, and I'd really be interested in hearing from farmers who have participated in it, and this 5-year part of it, the fact that the plan lasts for 5 years and is then reliant on budget funding, and we are getting closer to budget 2026. So if it's something that you have investigated, or indeed if it's part of your farming practice, please do feel free to get in contact with me. And of course, if you missed part of today's show, or indeed any of our previous shows, you can go to Midlands 103, click on podcasts and listen back to Let's Go Green there. You can also follow us and subscribe to us on your preferred podcast platform. Just search for Let's Go Green with Aisling O'Rourke. That is all we have time for on this week's episode of the show.